Thank you.
I understand this is a split call.
Thank you,
I call
Mr.
the
Speaker.
Honourable Nikki Wagner 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a budget of broken promises. Labor sold its soul and its pocketbook to Winston Peters, and now they can't keep the faith with their own voters. Such poor spending choices. No universal cheaper doctors' visitors, those extra 1,800 extra cops on the Never Never, no funding for school donations, and a whole heap of new taxes from this government that promised no new taxes in its first term. How many Labor voters voted for tax deductions for pretty horses? How many Labor voters voted for a new embassy in Stockholm? How many Labor voters voted for a political slush fund focused mostly on Northland and Shane Jones' backyard? Labor raised expectations, promised the earth and hasn't delivered. Every sector feels shortchanged. The teachers say the government is only putting band-aids on the problem. The social workers say more could have been done to tackle urgent social challenges. The medical students are disappointed with the broken budget promises. The midwives say, this is the final straw, I can't do it anymore. And the problem is that I don't think it's going to get better with any of the next budgets. Significant policy changes, the suffocation of the oil and gas industry and its well-paid jobs, the cancellation of irrigation projects and the private primary growth fund, an increased tax burden, and actually the madness of increased borrowing in good times is all taking its toll. Even the Treasury's most optimistic economic forecasts are not as rosy as they were pre-election, and independent economists are even more pessimistic. And now, for example, of where this budget hasn't delivered, let's consider arts, culture and heritage. A sector championed by the PM, who is hugely enthusiastic about the importance of the arts and the access for all New Zealanders. And the sector had expectations that artists, arts organisations and arts events would be promoted, would be supported and funded, but they were sorely mistaken. This budget includes a mere 2.6% increase on the so-called inadequate funding of the past. And Creative New Zealand, the Film Commission, the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra, the Royal New Zealand Ballet and Te Matatini get zip, no increase at all. And worse than that, the very worst thing is such a small percentage of that measly amount of new money is actually going to artists or going to support New Zealanders to enjoy the arts. 85% of that new funding is going towards bureaucracy and bricks and mortar. $500,000 more for ministerial servicing. $3 million more for policy advice. Labor has 3 ministers in the sector, but they need more money and more people to tell them what to do. And finally, $1.3 million so that they can keep their eye on the agencies that they fund. So, in summary, less than a half of 1% of the tiny 2.6% of increased funding for the arts is actually going to be spent on the arts. The government talks the talk, raises expectation of funding for arts, but spends on bureaucracy. So, Madam Speaker, for a party that promised so much for the arts, they've only delivered for the PSA. And no, Madam Speaker, that does not stand for poor, struggling artists. Thank you.
I call Simon O'Connor.
Madam Speaker, I'm actually disappointed in many ways to have to take a call, and I'm sure the opposition's disappointed as well, but I'm disappointed to have to take a call on an